Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press. It's good to be here back in South Texas. As most of you know, I am David Aguilar, Acting Commissioner for U.S. Customs and Border Protection. It is a pleasure to have with us this afternoon the Secretary from the Department of Homeland Security. I invited her specifically to come down here to take a look at some of the challenges that we have in South Texas and some of the opportunities that we have also. South Texas, to us, is very important for the following reasons. One, it is a tremendous thoroughfare and corridor for the economic engine of our nation, economic competitiveness within the trade community. That's one. Two, from a security perspective, critically important that we do everything that we can as DHS and especially Customs and Border Protection to protect our nation and keep it secure from the adversaries and the challenges that we have south of us looking to come into this country. And thirdly, important to me, is this is where I was born, bred, and raised. So it's always good to be back here. Now, some of the things that the Secretary saw in the last day and a half were those challenges that I talked about, unique to the Rio Grande Valley, unique to South Texas. She saw the challenges of terrain. She saw the opportunities that reside within the law enforcement community and the partnerships that we have with them. She also saw some of the things that we need to keep working on in order to make this part of our country as safe as it can be. Now, within Texas, there are about 8,000 United States Border Patrol agents. We have about 4,000 officers at our ports of entry. In Deep South Texas, what we refer to as Deep South Texas, from Del Rio on down to Brownsville, there are a total of about 6,000 Border Patrol agents and 2,000 officers at our ports of entry. That is what she had an opportunity to tour. That is what she saw an opportunity to see. Yesterday, we visited the FAR Port of Entry. She had an opportunity to see FAR's ports of entry operations. Of high interest to her, being from Arizona, is recognizing that the FAR Port of Entry is second only to Nogales Port of Entry in Arizona as it relates to the importation of agriculture. So she saw our officers at and between the ports of entry and flying over our nation's borders, protecting against narcotics traffickers, criminal organizations, aliens coming into this country, and pests trying to get into this country and to destroy our economy by attacking our crops. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you, from Arizona originally, New Mexico originally, lived in Arizona, now the Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security, Ms. Janet Napolitano.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, and it's good to be here, and I am joined by many of our leadership. We've had a very productive, I think, 2 days visiting the border, a day and a half of which has been here in South Texas. I came to McAllen today, first and foremost, to thank the men and women of CBP, Customs and Border Protection, and from DHS. They are working every day to keep our country safe, to facilitate the legal travel and trade that needs to occur through this area, and to make sure that we are doing all that we can to maximize our ability to minimize risk to the homeland. We have employees at the ports. We have employees between them. They have difficult jobs. Many work very long hours. They often put themselves in harm's way for our benefit. So I had the opportunity to spend some time with them today and to say thank you. As the Commissioner has mentioned, I have been pretty busy the last day and a half. I was at the FAR Port. Today we were with the Air and Marine Branch. We were down at the Forward Operating Base at Falcon. We toured the river area. And all of this was designed to give me some firsthand knowledge about the terrain and challenges presented here in the South Texas area. This is important. Why? Because while I can read every memo and see every chart and view every map there is, there's nothing that beats actually seeing something on the ground yourself to give you a sense of what's really going on. This administration has deployed unprecedented resources to the southwest border. We have worked with Congress over the last few years. We increased the amount of money dedicated to the southwest border by $600 million over what it was just a few years ago. That allowed us to add 1,000 net new Border Patrol agents, 250 new agents at our CBP ports of entry, and 250 new ICE special agents working issues of transnational crime. And we are seeing results from all of these efforts. Nationwide illegal immigration attempts, as measured by Border Patrol apprehensions, have decreased 53% in the past 3 years. They are less than 20% of what they were at their peak. Seizures of illegal drugs, currency, and guns are all up, but violent crime in our largest border cities and in our border counties, and I had the opportunity to meet with a number of the border sheriffs here this afternoon, the violent crime in all of these areas has gone down significantly. These are among the safest areas in the United States. Over the past 10 years, the Border Patrol has approached border security on a sector-by-sector basis. So if you look from San Diego all the way to Brownsville, great progress has been made. Those successes are enabling us now to evolve to a place where we don't just react to what has happened, but we think about and move ahead of things that could change, tactics, trends, techniques that could be altering, so that we are ahead of those changes. We're not just reactive, we are also proactive. Our men and women are better positioned now than they ever have been to achieve this goal. It's something they are doing very well right here in South Texas. By integrating the operations not just within CBP but across the Department of Homeland Security, and indeed working with other federal departments and agencies and with state and local law enforcement, we can yet again prove that the sum is greater than each of the parts. We have made a lot of progress, but we're not standing here to take a victory lap. We are here to say we are listening, we are learning, we are moving, we are acting. This area of the border is very important to us. We want it to be safe and secure. We want the communities to be safe and secure. We want the trade and commerce and relationships that have been hallmarks of the relationship between South Texas communities and with Mexico and beyond. We want those relationships to be able to continue in a very fulsome fashion. So with that, I want to say thank you again to the men and women, the leadership standing with me, the men and women who are standing in the room today with us, and I will be happy to take some questions.
Right here. Secretary Napolitano, I wonder how you speak to the frontline Border Patrol agents in these last couple of days and previously when it comes to the policy changes that are giving more discretion in terms of deportation cases that are initiated. They're basically, the ones I've talked to in recent days say they're seeing more and more of the cases of the people who get by them dropped or not initiated to begin with, and it seems to be hurting morale a bit from what I'm hearing from the agents.
Well, I don't think it should. I think it should be just the opposite. These are law enforcement organizations, and I'm speaking now as a former prosecutor, U.S. Attorney and an Attorney General. Every good law enforcement organization sets priorities that match with your ultimate objectives. Within our objectives, we want to protect public safety and protect the integrity of the immigration system. That is, we want to prioritize removing from the country those who have committed crimes in addition to violating our nation's immigration laws. We want to continue to keep out of the interior of the country those who are recent entrants. So those that are apprehended by the Border Patrol are within our priorities. We want to also keep as priorities those who are fugitives from existing warrants. By simply stating those priorities, which match up with common sense law enforcement practice, what we are doing is making sure that our resources at the CBP level, at the ICE level, and leveraging together really give us the biggest bang for the buck.
Madam Secretary, Ron Whitlock, Water Lookout Award. I talked with your predecessor, Michael Chertoff, and with Senator K. Billy Hutchison years ago about the fact to attack America, all you got to do is put something in on the Mexican side of the sole source body of water that serves 1 million people that your commissioner just alluded to here in South Texas. He threw the ball to try to get dollars for technology to monitor that river to Republican Governor Rick Perry, who did nothing about it. I just talked to Senator Hutchison just a few hours ago here in McAllen. She indicated she'd be more than happy to work with you and with Commissioner Aguilar to try to find technology dollars to try and make sure that the 18 river plants were pumping this water, sitting on the very banks of this very insecure river, now being attacked by bullets out of Mexico, could have technology if you, in fact, would issue some kind of an order to maybe perhaps do a study of whether it needs to be done. Would you be willing to commission a study with Commissioner Aguilar to try to see what these 18 river plants can get technologically to protect them and the body of water that they use to send up to us to keep this economy going here in South Texas?
Well, I think I'd answer that this way. First of all, obviously, if Senator Hutchison has an interest in working with us on trying to see what can be done, we would share that interest and we would look forward to working with her. But more importantly, let me ask you to refocus your thinking a bit. And that is, the minute we start focusing solely on, well, this particular plant or this particular area or this particular device, what we lose sight of is that we have to work in multiple levels simultaneously. In other words, we have to start from the intelligence we get. What are the bad guys thinking about? What do they have the technological capability to do? Do we get any sense of that? Where do we think they are focused? So we have to make sure that we're covering and have multiple layers from the intelligence gathering and analytics side down to and then up to and including what we do at an actual port of entry or an actual river entry, whatever, what we actually do there. So before you even get to a physical place, you know, a physical place on the border, a gate at an airport or what have you, there are many, many layers of activity that go on well before then.
Your commissioner has assigned liaison with each of these 18 irrigation districts, and things have improved under Commissioner Aguilar's stewardship because he is from this area, he understands. Now, because these 18 plants are in the corridors, they don't want them cleared, they don't want the people there monitoring their activities, and so they're literally being attacked out of Mexico. One is building a boat ramp so your boats can be launched from Donna all the way to Angelo Dewis, 6 miles from here. They built that at the Water District plant so your people can launch boats to monitor and keep this from happening. So things are going on due to Commissioner Aguilar's effective stewardship.
Well, that's one of the nice things about having a commissioner who's actually from this area.
Absolutely.
You bet.
Right here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for coming, by the way. But a couple of months ago, one of our local representatives was quoted saying, "We hire a lot of men and women in green, but we don't hire enough in blue." And then he further on went to say that there's a lot of money going to a lot of green going to the green, but not enough to blue. Do you think it's wise, and do you support, after now that you've been around this area, do you think it's wise to seemingly kind of put down one department in hopes of raising another, considering, I think, reading the reports, you see that the Border Patrol is doing a tremendous job protecting this area, stopping a lot of the trafficking and whatnot. What do you think would be the next steps you should take in furthering their efforts without so much, like the local officials are saying, putting them down?
Well, I don't know what you mean by putting them down. We work and have from the beginning very closely with our local partners. And to the extent that we provide funding to help pay for their overtime, for example. It's why whenever I travel around, we always make a point of meeting with chiefs, sheriffs, and the rest. In part, I come out of that background, so I know how important it is, and not to feel like the feds are descending, but to feel like we are all part of the same team. And in the end, we all have the same goals in mind. I mean, we want safe communities, we want a secure area, we want a border that facilitates legal trade and commerce. There are hundreds of thousands of jobs in the United States that depend upon the effective functioning of this border. And so none of us has the luxury of trying to be over and above. It's all part of one team with one common set of goals.
If I might. Let me just add the following to that, because I think it's critically important. The Secretary is absolutely right. It is about one team addressing the border as a whole. This is not about just between the ports of entry, not just about at the ports of entry. It is about the border as a whole. So when we take a look at the funding, we have gotten the budgets necessary to maintain a baseline of Border Patrol agents at about 21,370. The baseline for officers at the ports of entry is about 21,186. Those numbers are critically important. Some of the things that are coming to support those are the technology and the manner that we approach the management of the ports of entry. Now, a couple of figures that I think are very, very important to those that are saying that we are putting down in any way, which by the way we're not, the officers at the ports of entry. Over the last, since 2006, over the last 4 or 5 years, there has actually been an increase in the valuation of imports coming into this country at a rate of 44% increase over the last 5 or 6 years. There has also been an increase in the export valuation of over 48% of value of trade going back and forth. That does not speak to putting down the ports of entry. That speaks to successes and achievement in facilitating and making more efficient use of the resources we have. Now, we have some very constrained complexes, if you will, because these bridges, these ports of entry were built years ago. Some recently built as recently as 10 and 11, fiscal year 2010 and 11. But even those are being addressed for the needs that they have. And we're working with the community very closely to make the most use of all the resources we have to continue that growth on trade facilitation, on making efficient use of the resources that we have, and continuing to build on the trade and competitive economic trade and competitiveness of the trade in this community.
Secretary, last week in Juarez, President Calderon again asked the US to do more to stop the illegal weapons going south. You haven't mentioned that today, so what initiatives is the Obama administration doing to help Mexico?
Well, the number one thing, and I saw illustration of it yesterday, is inspecting vehicles going south. And inspecting vehicles going south, particularly for weapons. Previously, 3 years ago, we didn't inspect vehicles going south. But now we are doing that in part because of the concern of illegal weapons going into Mexico and helping to fuel the drug war there.
A few months
Madam
ago,
Secretary,
Right there.
thank you very much. Madam Secretary, outside this building, there is the people outside asking you, not taking families apart with the protection. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say, look, part of why we have set priorities, the way I described, where we're looking at those who have violated criminal laws in addition to immigration laws, recent border crossers, fugitives from warrants, is because those are the ones that cause the greatest danger to the community, right? That doesn't mean that there will not be families, unfortunately, that get separated in an immigration process. I think what they're really advocating for is that our nation's immigration laws be reformed. There's been no stronger supporter of that than the president. He has outlined what he wants by way of reform. He has sat down with members of the Congress. He has personally called members of the Congress. And yet he does not have the power unilaterally, just by himself, to reform the law, to change the law. So we continue to work on making sure our enforcement is firm, it's fair, it's effective, it's efficient, but at the same time to advocate that the basic law be updated and reformed in any number of ways.
Right there.
Madam Secretary, we have 2 big elections coming up on both sides of the border. How do you foresee that affecting the way things are currently run?
Well, I think with respect to the issues we're talking about today, I believe in Mexico. We're working very strongly with the Calderon administration. We will work with whomever is elected, be it PAN, be it PRI, be it LPD, whoever is elected, we will work with. Mexico is our neighbor. As I've mentioned before, we have a lot of trade and commerce that goes back and forth. There's a lot of jobs, a lot of communities on both sides of the border. There are families who have members on both sides of the border who depend on our ability to manage this border collectively in a safe and effective way. So we will work with whomever is in the elected leadership of Mexico. And with respect to our current election, my view is we have a law enforcement job to do. And law enforcement, to me, is not a bipartisan issue in that respect. I think they respect the genesis of your question. So I would think that we're all focused on doing the same things here in the United States, and that is making sure we keep crime rates here as low as we can and deal effectively with crime when it's committed, making sure that we continue to reduce the amount of illegal immigration across this border, making sure that we focus on the narcotics trade and the transnational criminal organizations, the big drug cartels that are trying to ply this border, and making sure that the border, again, as I said before, is a safe and secure border area, border zone in which so many people live and work.
Secretary, you just mentioned that the cartels that are trying to ply the border, can you not say that they are applying the border? There is spillover. It is coming into our cities and into our border counties.
Well, that's what you say, and there are undoubtedly some crimes that occur that are related to drugs. Let me not underestimate that. We know that. But the kind of violence that you are seeing on the Mexican side, where it's really cartel on cartel, against law enforcement in a sustained, organized way, that kind of spillover violence we have not seen. The sheriffs I just met with told me they haven't seen it. We speak regularly with law enforcement along the border all the time, Arizona, Texas, California, you name it. That being said, we don't want that to happen. So when I talk about us being proactive and not just reactive, while we may not be able to prevent every murder from occurring, I think we can be ahead of and will be ahead of any kind of systemic spillover violence of the type that I think your question suggests.
Last one right here.
Thank you. My name is Laura Cavazos from Univision here in McAllen. I wanted to know, what did you learn in your visit here in South Texas? This is your first visit?
It's my first visit as secretary.
Okay.
I learned a lot of things. First of all, I learned that we have an incredible group of men and women working here, and they're very dedicated to their jobs. They are very much on task. Many of them are from this area. They grew up here. Their families are here. They have something really at stake in keeping this area safe. I learned about the differences in terrain between here and, say, the western part of the border, Arizona, New Mexico. And that means some of the things that we do in Arizona, some of the high towers with the special radar sensors and things that make sense in broad expanses of open land, may not work here because of the kind of vegetation we have, because of the way the river bends in and out and loops around. I learned that we have a number of small communities along the border interspersed with some larger towns, and they're very, very close to the border, some as close as a mile, half a mile. And that makes a difference with respect to apprehensions. All of that goes into the mix as we look into planning our future operations, our future manpower, technology laydown, how we're going to make sure that we sustain this area, protect this area, invest in this area, and make this a safe and secure border zone. So I would say for me it has been a very, very productive couple of days. Thank you all very much. Thank you all.